Yay! And we are live on the Gamification Revolution. Hello, 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 everybody. I'm your host, Gabe Zichermann. It is a sunny and definitely starting to feel like spring, but still a little cool day in New York City. And I'm joined just up the street by Aaron Price, the CEO of LiveCube. Hi, Aaron.
Hello, Gabe. Thanks for having me.
Yay! Yay that you're here, and yay that the rest of you are here. Hello, everyone, and welcome. So glad that you're here. If it's not your first time, welcome back to Gamification Revolution. If it is your first time on the show, welcome, welcome. You'll need to log in with one of your social media accounts to access the power of this freecast platform, and that means asking us questions and talking to people in the chat, which is happening beside us here. There's a button for camera. You can come on camera. You actually can ask Aaron and I questions live and in person with your face on the screen. It's insane. Or you can ask us questions by text by clicking on that question button. But you've got to log in first. And for those of you who are not with us live today, none of those features will work. But thank you for listening on the audio or video podcast. And you can tune in every week, sometimes twice a week in the run up to G Summit in June. And for those of you who don't know, G Summit's coming up June 10th through the 14th. You can see Aaron and me, 50 plus other speakers talking about the latest trends in gamification and engagement for employees and customers. It's a really, really exciting time. There's workshops, you can earn a certification, you can go hands-on with guys like BJ Fogg. You guys, if you don't know, BJ Fogg, the #1 expert in creating habits and behavior in the world, Professor BJ Fogg, with this constant stream of sold-out workshops. You can't get in for love or money. You can take a hands-on workshop with BJ, get access to all of his amazing goodness, and you can do the same with me if you like me, all at G Summit, gsummit.com. And if you use the code GAMREV, you can save $200 off the tickets for being a viewer of the show. Couldn't be easier. All right. So, Aaron, what is LiveCube?
Do they get the drug that you're on when you do these webcasts as part of the ticket price?
Yes. Well, I think, as you know from being around me a little bit, right? My energy can be infectious, but so can yours. People can't see that right now because you're kind of sort of in shadow. But anyone who knows you knows that your energy is infectious too. Tell us about LiveCube.
Let me tell you about LiveCube as energetically as possible,
Yeah.
which may not be that energetic, but we think that we can do a much better way of engaging audiences at events. And people are on their phones and they're tweeting, and even in an event, in an interaction just like this, people are sharing hopefully in part of the conversation, but there's not much of a feedback loop, and they're not getting rewarded for quality content, and they might even be distracted with their IM client, or if they're on their phone with their Candy Crush and Facebook. And so we wanted to give people a better way to be part of the conversation and gamified that experience so that people could earn points and badges and real prizes, like maybe at G Summit, they'll even win time with you one-on-one potentially, so that they could, imagine that, right? So to give people a real good way to engage with an event through social media and have a better means of sharing and finding ideas and sharing and finding the people in the room.
So, right. So that sounds exciting. For folks who don't know, LiveCube was originally piloted. It was a design idea that Justin and I had, and Kevin, who runs G Summit, had a couple of years ago, 2 G Summits ago, which is now closing in on 3 years ago. And so we built this app to kind of help people engage, and it's had sort of interesting history. Aaron just recently, not that long ago, joined to kind of help LiveCube become its own thing and move forward. And so, Aaron, why don't you connect the dots though, because it's had a kind of an interesting history, and since being used at G Summit, it's been used by some other clients as well. What are some of the things that we know that can be done? What's possible if we gamify live events? What do we get out of that?
What we get is an audience on fire if it's well used, and it's been well used by some really great companies like Verizon Wireless and Random House, and a group out of we did a South by event called at the W2O Group's pre-commerce summit. And what we have found is when you educate people about how they can be rewarded, when you explain to them how this game could work, they're very motivated to share, and they're very motivated to add quality content. And at the reach of an event, if it's powered by Twitter, we can power events through a few potential social media. So we can use Twitter or Yammer or Salesforce Chatter, and we're working on LinkedIn and Facebook and maybe even some Instagram options. So those public tools can have a really, really broad reach. We had an event The pre-commerce summit's a great event. They had about 150 people in the room. It generated over, and for a single day event, 1,600 individual tweets, over 1,100 retweets, and over a Twitter reach of over 6.7 million potential followers. This is,
What does that mean?
That means that it's the sum of how many people potentially saw the messaging from the audience in the room. So there's 150 people in the room, potentially touching 6.7 million followers. Now, of course, they're not all on Twitter at that time, and they're not all seeing those messages. But the fact, or the possibility of amplifying a message in a room with just 150 people, that's a pretty small audience to over 6 million. Even if it's 100,000 people see the messages, 10,000 people see the messages. Imagine a room of 150 people seeing, being seen by 100 or 10,000, 100,000 potential followers. What that means to an event organizer.
Well, and tell me something though, like what's the difference between this and just letting people talk on Twitter on their own? Like, don't we get that? Don't people just talk on Twitter while they're in a live event anyway?
Yeah, they do. That's kind of the problem. So organization and focus, I think, are the two issues that we address. And the feedback loop. On Twitter, you may be seen, if you spell the hashtag correctly, which hopefully you would, you're a very good speller, Gabe, I'm sure you'd be fine. So maybe you don't know what the hashtag is. So is it GCO, Gamification Co, G Summit?
Yeah, and right now, for example, it's hashtag GamRev, which Michael Finney, one of our regular viewers, wants everyone to know.
Yeah, so there you go, right? Oh, I see the messages pop up, right? So yeah, it's GamRev, but people frequently, they know that there's a space, if there's a space there. Hashtags are actually one of the more widely less understood, misunderstood is the right word, misunderstood Twitter mechanisms. So yes, there is a conversation in the room, but people tend to misspell or not really know how to use the hashtag appropriately. If they do, whether or not their stream shows up in real time to someone else is kind of a crapshoot. They hope that someone else is using a tool that shows just the things that are hashtag GamRev, but they might not be. And so one of the basic things that LiveCube does is it pre-populates in the hashtags. No one has to think about what the hashtag is or does. It pre-populates in the Twitter handle, so no one has to know, are you G Zichermann, Gabe Z, Crazy Gabe?
That is super frustrating. Oh my God, that part of it. That was part of the reason why we designed it this way. It was like, made me crazy. What is the speaker's handle? And what happens if people don't get it right, right?
That's right.
But I think this is an interesting thing though. So normally we think of gamification being used to amplify action. And it does that in LiveCube, but you're also talking about using it to filter out noise and get people to focus. How do we do that? Because that's a very unusual use of gamification.
So I was saying the first part of this is about discussion, which I think we've hit on. The next part's about the focus, and that's giving people the feedback loops so that they can get recognized for small achievements. So like you post a message, and within a few minutes, maybe 5 people, maybe 10 people, maybe 20 people have retweeted it, and in that process, you've earned actual real status with the people in the room. Your name is showing up next to your messages. So people are realizing, oh, there's Michael Finney. He's super active. He just earned a few badges. Oh, why is his profile icon in blue now? How come he has VIP seating and real stuff on his, real ribbons on his badge, which we can do in some scenarios. So it finishes or completes the loop of when you're having a conversation in a social digital environment. So you're heard, you're more clearly and effectively heard. And instead of playing around with, again, it gives you something to do. We know you're going to use your device. 60% of people admit that they're using their device at least once every 3 minutes at an event. Well, if we know you're going to be on your mobile device, why not give you something to do that's more effective and complementary to your event going experience than Candy Crush and Facebook and texting?
Well, it's an interesting kind of thing, just sort of thinking about this philosophically for a second, right? So the part of the reason why gamification has become so interesting to people is because of all the noise and all of the distraction. And so now we're kind of, one of the things that LiveCube does is uses gamification to help clear the gateway a little bit, clear the plates of people to combat the distraction. aren't we just like replacing one distraction with another distraction kind of in a way? Like, shouldn't what we really do is like block people's Wi-Fi and internet access while they're sitting in a room listening to a speaker so they literally cannot do anything but focus on the guy up on the stage?
You're probably not shocked to know there are actually events where they do exactly that. They make you check your phone at the door and they shut off the Wi-Fi and they try to lock you into the room for their amazing event. And that's cool. They tend not to be LiveCube customers, but for those who understand that if we use technology effectively, you have the most sophisticated piece of technology an arm's reach away in your pocket at an event. With tools like LiveCube, we're not the only thing on the market, but we think we're the best thing on the market. We can make it so that your event going experience is more enriching. How do you find the top 5 ideas shared within a session? How do you find more easily the people in the room who are relevant to you? How do you more easily engage with the speakers and even follow up with sponsors? So we think that if it's used correctly and well implemented, that your device becomes a complementary tool. I like to think of it as when you're in grammar school or high school, when there's a teacher in front of you on stage, teaching something. Typically, people are heads down. I mean, I was like this as a student. I was heads down, taking notes in my notebook, but I'm still listening. I'm still engaged. I'm still focused. I didn't have other things on my sheet of paper, which is very similar to how LiveCube works. There are no other external distractions. I'm just thinking about and taking notes about what's going on in that classroom, or what note I might want to hand to like the girl next to me. But otherwise, it was just what's going on in that classroom. And that's a lot
We know
like.
what you're like.
But other than that, that's what LiveCube does for an event. It's the note-taking experience. If you think about how social media is used in an event experience, it tends to be asking interesting questions, sharing interesting facts, and sharing interesting quotes, which is a note-taking tool. It just happens to be done publicly. It's very similar to how going to a classroom is.
So I just put something up on screen for folks that can see it. This is Michael brought this up from last year's G Summit. It was one of the prizes that people could win from interacting with LiveCube. It's a type of shirt. Some of you have seen me wear it on screen, or if you happen to be a weird stalker and follow me to the gym, I'm often in this shirt at the gym. It's a limited edition G Summit shirt. Gamified this shirt is what it says on the front, and one of our lucky winners standing in front of the concourse last year showing it. So over the course of time, Aaron, the prizes, I want to talk about prizes and what we reward people with for good behavior here. There's been some real innovation on prizes. Talk to us about how important are prizes and what are some of the best ideas for rewarding people that you've seen as far as like rewarding them in real time in a live setting.
I'll start from the other side. So as your audience, if they're following you, they probably know that, giving away stuff. Everyone I talk to wants to give away stuff right away. People love, gift cards and stuff, and that's cool, and they do. Every tchotchkes, organizers love to say, oh, we'll just give away this great tchotchke. And I'm frequently talking to them about more engaging pricing mechanisms we can use. And when we've done some, they've been really cool. So we've done things like, we have done plenty of stuff things. Somebody won, Amex gift cards and Amazon gift cards. But we've also done things where people won VIP parking for a month at a corporation, where they won a trophy that was kind of flamboyant and was like large and displayed on a desk. So they won a physical thing, but it really had a social mechanism built into it in that they'd put it on their cubicle or desk and people would walk by and say, oh, that's really cool. You were the guy who won that thing. That's amazing. I heard you also got a meeting with our CEO because of that, with the prize. So there are things you can do that drive really good social interactions that are much more broad. Secret sessions at events. I know you've done that. We're doing that with the Travel and Executive Travel Association next month, where they're going to do a secret session with the CEOs of the top like Fortune 100 companies that'll be in the room. So there's some great.
Can you talk more about the secret session? What's the secret session for folks that don't know?
So in their case, and I probably something like what we'll have at G Summit, is the top 10 point earners at the end of the first day earn a secret session, which is a breakfast the next morning with some of the top CEOs who are attending the event. And so the value of giving them access to those kinds of speakers is something that they wouldn't get in their day-to-day life and job. And so we're giving them an opportunity to earn their way into talking to someone who they wouldn't have, the ability to talk to, which we think you can always go out and buy an iPad or buy something at Starbucks or Amazon, but you may not be able to get a meeting, with Gabe for an hour or with the CEO of a large company for an hour. And so, when people see that there's some amazing prize opportunity, they've gone the extra mile. I've had people, as you know, there are many personas in the game space, but we have people who see that it's a game and they will do whatever it takes to make sure that they are going to show up at, in that number one slot at the end of the day.
Right. So it's interesting because some of those ideas cost money. Some of them are tchotchkes. Some of them are things that don't cost money. Can you talk a little bit about the learning? And you talked a little bit about the model that we talked about in gamification, SAPS, for those who haven't heard it before: status, access, power, and stuff. That's the model that I've been espousing for some time. On this concept of a hierarchy of rewards. Status is things that allow people to feel better about themselves compared to others. Access is things, experiences they can't get, on their own or for money. Power is control over others, and stuff is free things, discounts, and coupons. So, what is the learning from the reality in the real world as it relates to that, as you've seen in these events? And let me just say, for anybody who's interested, Michael is selling his limited edition gamification shirt, Gamify this shirt for $1 million. So if you want it, it's available to you for sale. So what about this range of options? What do we know in practice?
So when we talk to people about their options, first of all, they tend to not have a big budget because they tend to hear about us after they've allocated all their budget to something else. And so we sometimes by requirement have to come up with some more creative options. But it turns out that those more creative options are usually the most effective. So for instance, the travel and executive event that we're doing next month, which brings together all the travel and event planners from the travel industry. I think there's 700 people in the room in Miami. As we know, Dave, the travel industry has done some pretty innovative things with gamification, including 2 carpets that take you to the same door. And so we are going to be doing this, also known as the rewards program and the premium flyer, program. And so we're going to be doing something similar there. They're going to have a red carpet that leads you to a VIP check-in section, right? Because we've all been to events where there could be a long line and then it could take a while. So we're going to give people the opportunity to earn their way before the event even starts to this VIP line, so that they could have a VIP check-in experience. And we're giving them a few missions throughout the 3 days of this event where they could actually earn, we're calling it coach, business, and first class status. And those statuses will actually unlock other prizes. So the first one unlocks a special dessert in the first day. It's a dessert they were going to offer in general. Now they've made it limited edition. So there's no extra cost. Okay. So that's, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think that's an access prize. The second day, they have the ability to earn the secret session. So that's a power and access prize. And the third day, they're actually, as a group, have the ability to earn to pick the location for next year's event and earn a discount for the ticket price for that event. And so they're doing some things that I think are pretty interesting and innovative, and tying the social media use and the networking aspects of LiveCube into a real life experience that makes it that much more enriching. And so there's some individual goals, there's some team goals, there's some things that are kind of the low-hanging fruit stuff that everybody will likely get. There are some things that are going to take a lot to unlock and achieve, but they all have some really interesting effects on your engagement at an event like this.
Well, yeah, and you just brought up something kind of interesting, because I know that there's some new features of LiveCube that involve teams and team play. Can you talk a little bit about those games? So we've been talking about kind of like we've been talking about more substantive gamification that's about content and position and the hierarchy and relating to other people. What about the fun elements of events? How do we gamify events to be more fun, and what are we doing to make them more fun?
Yeah, fun is a dirty word in the event space because they're very buttoned up and incorporated.
But that seems crazy.
It is crazy.
Isn't the whole, one of the big things about an event is that it's fun? That's why we go to conferences like G Summit.
That's why we go, but that's not what it tends to. There tends to be a fine balance in how much fun can we have at this corporate event, this corporate-y kind of event. We have introduced a few things because we think, again, like this device can be used to make the event more fun. So one of the things that the organizers, one thing that's important for the success of LiveCube is people understanding how it works and what they should do. And so to make that kind of onboarding process more effective and more fun, one of the things we launched recently is something called the Space Race. And we've all been at some kind of a sporting event where in between an inning or during a timeout, they have 3 or 4 airplanes of 3 different colors on a screen. And their airplanes just race across the screen, or the trains go across the tracks, and you just pick, you mentally choose your color, and that's your team, and everybody starts voting quickly for like the go blue, go red, but you don't actually have any control. You're guessing at which thing will cross the finish line first. And that was the inspiration for something that we call the Space Race. But instead of with hours, you actually have control on the outcome of the game. So an event organizer pulls up on screen 4 little rocket ships. People pull out their devices, and they're instantly put onto one of those 4 teams. They're just colors: blue, pink, green, and yellow. So it instantly says, welcome, you are on team blue, awaiting launch. And when the organizer is ready to launch the game, start the game, they see on screen there's 50, 100, 500 people who join. He or she can hit start, and everybody gets on their device a button. And the faster you tap that button, the faster the rocket ships go to the top of the screen, and people are cheering for each other, and let's go team blue, and we're going to get you team yellow. And it's just a 30-second game, but for that 30 seconds, all you hear and see if you're watching, because I've done this now a bunch, is just people super engaged. You can't see me doing like this thing, like just watching the screen. How are we going to get it? How are we going to get it? And then they're doing one of these. I can get more taps on my phone. And so it's a really fun way for people to onboard into like, wow, technology can really complement my event experience, make it more fun. We obviously end that with, you just earned 10 points. Here's what LiveCube is, and start your process. But it's a very simple but really powerful thing to do to get a whole audience of people who are not used to. I mean, this is one of the most innovative things in the event world, if I could say it. This does not happen in the event space. And people are like completely wowed when this is over and start asking who's on team yellow, who's on team blue, and what's this thing do? And like, all right, like this is going to be a cool event. So that's one thing we've done that I think is a lot of fun, really a simple but effective way to get people to understand how technology can be a great addition to an event.
So, so that kind of like typically that sort of ice-breaking experience that you describe, right? That thing at the beginning, the space race, that space race experience is, is really a lot of fun. I'm hoping we can find an image of it. I just asked Mac to see if he can find one for us because it's cool. That kind of thing was normally done by somebody standing up in front of the audience and saying, "Okay, everyone, let's stand up. Put your arms up. Okay, now put your arms down. Now turn to the person next to you and shake your hand." Are we losing something in the process of doing this through technology? Is replacing that with a game as much fun as it is? And I've seen it in action. Obviously, it's been, people are really into it. Are we losing something from that?
I would make the argument that we actually make it more human and more personal, because by kickstarting the conversation with something like by having everyone play that game, you can now have a reason to have an actual ice-breaking conversation and say, hey, what team were you on? How are you doing in LiveCube? Okay, by the way, where are you from and what do you do? And the rest of a normal conversation that you have in an event like that. And that's what we have found has happened with LiveCube, that it makes it more personal. Your photo and your real name is next to your photo within the app. People actually have more one-off conversations with using the app. So we have found that it actually increases the number of people that you meet and becomes, look, you're there, at least so far, the events that we've powered, you're there in person. You're there to meet people and share, learn the ideas in the room. But if we give you a tool that helps you find a few people that you may not have bumped into, that gives you a way to start a conversation where you may not have known, like, what am I going to say to this random person who looks like someone I should talk to, but I really don't know what I'm going to say. Now you can go and see a few of his or her messages, or at least say, which team were you on for that space race? Wasn't that cool? Where are you from? It actually is an actual icebreaker that gives people a reason to be more human.
So, so Michael asked a question. Michael was at G Summit 2013, and he's talking about, how G Summit became a trending topic on Twitter at that event.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about how that actually happened? What's the idea? Because it's a relatively small event. It's only, we normally only have 600 people or so. at G Summit. How did
Yeah.
we become a trending topic there?
Well, I'm still trying to uncover exactly the algorithm so that we can try to repeat it more frequently. But I can say that we've done it since. And the bottom line is the way that it happens then and the way it's happened since is by pre-populating in that hashtag. Twitter looks for a high concentration of social activity in a relatively small geographic area to start with to see if something is trending. So we did another small event called the IBEV, the International Beverage Industry Conference. Same kind of a concept, and this was in San Francisco too, and we became a top trending regionally in that case for IBEV that particular day because we were one of the most active conversations. But the reason that happens is because everyone, with using LiveCube, we're letting people share their content and their commentary to the experience, and not ever asking them about a hashtag. It is auto-populated into the system that no one has to think about what it is. And I think at the end of the day, what made it effective at G Summit 2013 is that no one had to think about it. People were being social by default because it's a social audience, and LiveCube was populating in automatically. G Summit, I think it was G Summit 13 was the hashtag, but I'm not sure. But regardless, there wasn't one error. Anyone who was using LiveCube at that event, or MemeCube was the predecessor, but was using the tool, was automatically helping vote up and bump up the Twitter rankings for trending. So I think that, again, it's letting people not have to stumble around with what's the handle, what's the hashtag, how does this work, and let them actually add commentary and photos that can drive really big interaction. I'm also leaving something else out, which is, and it's very important to the trending topic, we make it very easy to discover and retweet posts. And so allowing the audience to easily find the conversation in one place and quickly go through and retweet 3 or 5 or 10 things also dramatically bumps up, even more than the hashtag usage. For getting the hashtag is a requirement, but getting trending is actually based on quality content, which is a big score derived from the retweets. And so we had a great way to intensify the retweet activity.
Well, I put up a little screenshot of LiveCube, and Kim commented from the chat that she thinks it looks really good. And I agree. We're making some changes to it a little bit, but I have one sort of final question for you. Whether we're thinking about LiveCube in general or just overall, what percentage of this is actually about good design? Like, one of the common things that people say about gamification at these interactions is really it's kind of like a UI or UX discipline where you have to really kind of think about the user experience and focus them on what we want them to focus on. And you've been talking about, what does LiveCube do? Well, it clears out the clutter. It's note-taking. It's social note-taking. It's slightly competitive note-taking. It's got great rewards. But really what we're doing, ultimately is we're designing a new experience for people, right, on their device that is the right companion to a live event rather than an unstructured one. Can you talk a little bit about how design in this context is influences outcomes, how we get the right outcomes that way?
Yeah, I think that design is absolutely critical to any successful consumer-facing application, whether it's a game or a website or a document. We're more distracted than ever and have more and more distractions in real time all around us. And so I do think that, yes, we're definitely pushing the limits of our current design and are planning a major overhaul to make it even simpler to use. But I think that to be successful on a big scale requires a very, very compelling design, because they're literally one tap away from something else that they find more interesting or compelling. So we're still in a stage where our tool is so valuable to people that they're willing to overlook some of the design hurdles. And it does look great. It's more about usability, actually, in our case. So pure design wise, it looks beautiful. Some of the usability aspects we think could be improved. So they're willing to say there's enough value add here that I'm willing to figure it out and stumble around and ask some questions and get to where I need to go. And then once I'm in, it's so helpful that great, this is awesome. But I think that design cannot be ignored.
Can I ask you one last question? And of course, David mentions here, David, regular viewer, says, that people are visual, and so design is important. But I just want to ask you one last question before we break, that you brought up, which is about getting people to use it in the first place. I know that that's a challenge overall for everyone looking to do gamification. We can't expect that people will just use it. Hey, we built this cool thing, they're just going to use it. So what are some of the things that you've learned about the best ways to get people to use an application? Maybe think about specifically LiveCube and how that might extend to other experiences.
Yeah, so I think there are a few things that can be done. So one is for us, showing a value add, giving people a value proposition very, very, very quickly. And so that could be, easy way to get a few to earn points. So in our case, we're introducing the idea that as soon as you sign in, you earn your first batch of points, and some relatively easy steps to go through to earn your first badges. And hopefully, if it's well implemented with the organizer, that just those few simple things could unlock some physical reward, whether it's VIP seating or the extra dessert or something very basic that you can have a feedback loop. You can go through a few very easy steps and say, wow, that was pretty cool. I've been to a lot of events. I haven't done that. And now here I am, and I got my free XYZ thing or access to sit somewhere, or it unlocked something that wasn't previously available to me. But, we literally have 3 seconds to capture someone's attention. And if we can't show a good value proposition, they're out the door. So we would need to make a really compelling argument that use this tool, do a few things, and it's going to be rewarding. It's not just because it's cool, because you still have so much else going on that is kind of cool and fun. This needs to have a real value proposition. I would say that in any good game design, it's probably more about fun in general, but for gamification, showing a value proposition, showing achievable rewards in stages that can slowly onboard people, or I should actually quickly onboard people into the value proposition overall, I think is really, really important. They won't, there's too much else going on in the device that people can play with. It's more fun.
So quick onboarding, demonstrable value, quick rewards if it's possible, and then Gene added in the chat that word of mouth helps a lot. So LiveCube is well positioned, helping people communicate with each other. Aaron Price, you can follow him on Twitter at AP Startup, which is easy to find. And LiveCube app is at LiveCube app. Aaron, how do people find out more about it other than following you on Twitter?
They can mention us on either of those handles, or they can go to livecube.co, livecube.co, and check out more about LiveCube.
Fantastic. And in the meantime, for all of you who've been with us today on the Gamification Revolution, thank you so much. I hope to see you at G Summit in June. It's gsummit.com, and use the code GAMREV to save on your registration. You should register soon. There's big news coming out tomorrow, and you won't want to miss it. You can follow me on Twitter at @gzichermann, and we'll be back on Thursday of this week with another edition of Gamification Revolution with Ryan Klutz from Boeing. I'm your host, Gabe Zichermann. Thanks, Aaron, for being with us, and thanks all of you for joining us. We'll see you soon. Keep having fun, everyone.
Bye-bye.